Have you ever thought about what the end of the world is like? In 2000 BC, people write about a great flood that almost wiped out the entire human population. In 1945, we created a sun on Earth. Today, we don't fear the flood anymore, but we do have enough weapons to nuke every major city. The end of the world has changed, and we are at fault.
One Shot in the Dark, Now I'm Dead. It's a game that only allows you to read about the apocalypse. It was made in 3 days by the people behind VA11 or A. Compared to their previous titles, the experience is rather dry. As one of the few humans who are born after the apocalypse, your only interaction with the game is through reading. By going through news articles, reports, and people messages before the apocalypse, you uncover what actually ended the world. The cause of humanity's downfall doesn't really matter here. If you're curious, you can just play the game. It will probably just take half an hour less if you are a fast reader. It doesn't matter because it's already over. There's nothing you can do about it. The people responsible are long dead, and very soon, the rest of us are going to join them. Story about the end of the world is almost as old as humanity itself. In myths and legends all over the world, the apocalypse are usually the result of divine judgment, and a curiously large portion of them involve a flood. I'm not here to talk about why all the gods prefer drowning as punishment, but it does shed some light on the nature of Asian apocalyptic stories. Apocalypse in these stories are basically force of nature. Although the people are partly responsible for being arrogant or disrespectful, they have no real control over these natural disasters. In Sumerian myth, the earliest story that we know of, there too exists an apocalypse. Eridu Genesis talks of the creation of man and their subsequent destruction by the gods when they become too numerous and noisy. Not unlike its biblical counterpart, the gods decided to wipe the slate clean with a flood, and one man is tipped off by another god to build a big boat.
Be it destruction or salvation, we had little control over it. That's why we have myths and legends. They were our first attempt to make sense of the world around us. Of course, today we don't blame natural disasters on the gods. In the past 200 years, we have made more progress than the prior 3000s. Mountains didn't spit fire because the gods are angry. It's just how the world works. And we realize we have the potential to bend it to our will.
If you are to read predictions of the future written between late 19th to early 20th century, you'll find many of them containing this optimistic, almost naive vision for a time that writers will never witness.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Flying cars, space travel, mega structures, miracle cure-all, and the general eradication of suffering. These visions are not entirely wrong. Technology is generally improving people's life. Less people is dying of starvation than ever in history, because we now know how to mass produce food. Flooding is more of an inconvenience now than a disaster, because we figure out how it happens and how to stop it. Instead of being subject to the wrath of God, we now control them. As humanity alters more and more of the earth to their liking, some scientists predict we will become a Type 1 civilization in 100 to 200 years. A Type 1 civilization is one that has complete control over the energy on its planet, which is about 4 orders of magnitude more than what we consume now. Imagine what we can do with such power. The world of tomorrow is going to be an utopian heaven. Even if some grand calamity comes for us, we will have the power to push it back, or just blow it out of the sky. With the fire of Prometheus in our hands, humanity is destined to be like the old gods of Olympus, spreading our wings into infinity and live on forever. If the world wars are good for anything, it is showing us the true scale of our own destructive capabilities. Poison gas that cause soldiers to drown on dry land due to fluids built up in their lungs. Mortars so big they can transform any landscape into no man's land. Then, of course, we have to address the biggest radioactive elephant in the room.
Got a doll baby, I love her so. Nothing else like her anywhere you go. A man
There is a rumor saying that before the US tested the world's first nuclear weapon, scientists in the Manhattan Project worried it could ignite the atmosphere, kickstarting a chain reaction that would burn everything on the surface of the Earth, until there's nothing left to burn. This is only partially true. While yes, there was concern about igniting all the nitrogen in the air and hydrogen in the ocean, reports at the time already ruled out the possibility of this ever happening. On July 16, 1945, the Trinity test did not end the world. Still, it's pretty hard to deny that this is the closest thing we have to a doomsday device.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. I suppose we all thought that, one way or another.
I have never seen a nuclear explosion in person. Hopefully, none of us ever have to. But for those who did saw it, especially for the soldiers who essentially acted as guinea pigs during the early days of nuclear attacks, the experience is overwhelming.
I think it shocked us all into silence.
First, there is the flash.
When the flash hit you, you could see the x-rays of your hands through your closed eyes.
Then comes the heat.
That was just as if somebody my size had actually caught fire and then walked through me.
Finally, you look up to see a mountain, and you're standing right at the foot of it.
It wasn't there, it wasn't there, it was there. It was practically above you.
I don't think anyone who personally witnessed a nuclear explosion would say that this is the pinnacle of human achievement. This will be our legacy. No, this is the moment we as a species realize it's not the God who destroyed the world. It's us. In On the Beach, written by British author Neville Shute, whereof we have destroyed every nation on Earth, except Australia. The story starts not before or during the war, but after the dust has settled. There's no more fighting to be done. There's just Australia and the rest of the world in ruins. Australia is spared, not because of some heroic act or clever diplomacy. It's simply that Australia is out of the way. But even this salvation is temporary. As their scouting team discovered, the radiation is spreading. there will be no future for the people of Australia or anywhere else on Earth. Although the survivors detected a radio signal coming from Seattle, indicating a sign of life. It turns out to be nothing but wind blowing through a broken window, occasionally pressing down on a telegraph key. Characters in the book react to the apocalypse in their own way. Some decide to spend the rest of their days in their now radiation-filled hometown.
I got a date on Market Street, Captain. I'm going home.
A couple, together with their newborn baby, took the pills supplied by the government so they can pass away in peace as a family. The end is inevitable. We can only choose how to accept it.
Section 5, give it a limit.
Modernization and advancement in technology enable us to do basically everything at unprecedented efficiency, which, of course, include waging war. My personal favorite analogy of this is actually found in The Lord of the Rings. Yes, my favorite analogy for modernity and warfare is from a fantasy story with elves, dwarves, and a lot of sword fighting. Isengard, the fortress ruled by the wizard Saruman, is maybe the most brutally modern infrastructure in all of Middle-earth. Whenever people think about Isengard, we think of a barren land, filled with orcs and machinery. Holes dig so deep into the land, it looks like gunshot wounds. But it didn't start out as a wasteland. Blessed by the river Isen, Isengard was a green garden with lives thriving within its wall. That is until Saruman came along, cut off the river flow, and devastated the land for maximum efficiency. And I think this is Tolkien's take on the nature of modern warfare. Tolkien took part in the Great War. That's what they used to call World War I before there was a second one. It was great, not just because of the sheer scale of its battle, but also the unprecedented cost of lives and resources. Attrition warfare were commonplace during World War I. War of attrition is not won by a decisive victory, but by gradually grinding down your opponent's men and resources, until they literally cannot afford to fight anymore. This kind of tactics is not only devastating for the soldiers, but also for those back home. A country has to prioritize military production, which often results in rationing and shortage of basic goods, like food or medicine. Not unlike the forge of Isengard, the engine of the war machine consumes life and resources, only to spit out death and destruction. In Middle-earth, nature fights back against the unrelenting war engine, quite literally. But we do not have such privilege. The ends are not coming to our aid. Now, I have nothing against technology. I don't think we should stop advancing and go back to being cavemen. But technology is neither good or evil. At the end, it all comes down to how we use them. And what these fictional works show to us is humanity's failure to handle immense power. Despite our progress, we still live in a world where politicians alienate their own people for political favors. The most common response to international disputes is threatening each other with increasingly destructive weaponry. And our institution is absolutely incompetent in making meaningful changes during time of crisis. We are a 20th century species, wielding 21st century weapons of mass destruction. It's like giving a grenade to a monkey and expect it to not pull the pin.
Today, the power of the sun is in the palm of our hands. Today, we take a glimpse into the mystery of life itself. Today we have the power to create heaven and make hell on earth. We have more control over our own future than we ever had. We no longer fear the gods. But I'm scared of such agency. Because when the day comes, we will have nothing to blame but ourselves.
But you're so supreme.